You can go to jail for flushing the toilet. Are you shitting me? Guys, do not forget to comment since I really try to read every single one of your comments and you can be featured in the next video. Thank you so much. Your support is really, really well appreciated. And I was actually eating my breakfast right at this table before going to the gym because, yeah, fuck yeah, I work out. And the video of Switzerland came out. I was like, dude, I have to watch it. And as you can see, I am drinking my protein smoothie in my all American glass. There we go. That's nice. So let's just fucking go, dude. Switzerland. Watch loving, neutrality loving, chocolate making, cheese eating. Gosh, what's not there to like about Switzerland? And look, I can already look here at the description. I cannot believe in this episode it's gonna be sweet. So land. We're already starting with the bad jokes, dude. Shit, it's 30 minutes.
Basically
Man.
a bunch of mountain folk that built an entire economy off of what are essentially European ninjas. And now if shit goes down, they have a bunch of bunkers they can hide in case of nuclear war happens. But we'll get into that.
They take
later.
neutrality
In the meantime, here's the
seriously,
intro
man.
song.
It's time to learn geography. No!
Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbs. Get your Geography Now merch at geographynow.com. Not selling out if it's your brand. In any case, Switzerland, the crossroads of the Germanic
Go to my
and
Skillshare
Latin
profile,
worlds,
that's better.
known as the Confederation Helvetica, despite not actually being a confederation, named after the Helvetii tribe, which were actually Celtic,
We should hang out sometime.
that were mostly wiped out and driven away by the Latins and Germanic peoples.
Oh, well, okay.
But anywho, so I actually promised my Swiss friend Herman that he could be in this episode with me, and I wanted to fly him out here to Los Angeles to co-host. Unfortunately, at the time of filming this episode, the US had restrictions on Europeans entering our country, and the actual date of acceptance for Europeans to enter would take way too long. So I decided if I can't fly him out here, why don't I just fly out there and make a makeshift Geography Now studio set and have him in the episode. Here I go!
Oh shit. He actually went to Switzerland?
Oh, made it! And guys, say hi to Mr. Herman. How you
Hello,
doing?
nice to meet you.
Switzerland.
He even drives in neutral.
Again, I'm super short, so I gotta step on a box. What does it mean to you, Herman, to be Swiss?
There's of course the whole cheese and chocolate thing. For me, to be honest, we are quite grateful that we live in this nice country, which is just
It's
safe,
really nice,
stable,
dude. It's really
and it
fucking
has been
nice.
like this for a long time.
By the way, guys, this is the guy that was in my heritage trip video. This is my Swiss go-to guy. You're an expert on Switzerland, right?
Sure.
All right, and with that, let's move on. Let's find Switzerland on the map, shall we? So Switzerland is
Alps.
kind of a unique place in Europe, mostly because of the way how it was formed.
You see, most countries had a king, but Switzerland didn't. It was just a bunch of annoyed mountain folk who didn't want to align with any king and became independent.
Now, there's a lot of disagreement on exactly how Switzerland
yeah.
was formed. Some people say maybe it was the medieval times. Some people say it was the more modern Napoleonic Wars.
So technically, the earliest form of Switzerland was after the Rütli-Schwur. Uri, Schwyz, and Unterwalden agreed to have an alliance.
It was basically like,
Hey, Schwyz, how's it going?
Hey man, this army just came in and attacked me for no reason.
No way, me too.
Are we talking about the armies coming through without our permission?
Yes! Oh my god, so
annoying.
annoying.
You know what we should do? We should form
A confederation.
confederation.
A
yeah.
confederation.
Let's do it.
Like, let's form a confederation.
Together?
then later it was
Some of these
like,
people are kind of annoying, man.
Can we join, please?
Can I join too?
Just like,
I don't speak the language, but we'd like to join.
This gives me an idea. Maybe I should expand.
The point is, Switzerland started to grow.
And today you have the Switzerland you see before you locked away safely in the Alps.
Let's go to
Yeah.
the map now, shall we?
First of all, Switzerland is a landlocked nation located
Oh,
at the
this is gonna be
converging
interesting,
point
the
of Western,
geography.
Central and Southern Europe, surrounded by 5 countries. Remember, don't forget little Liechtenstein. The country is a federal republic made up of 26 cantons, each with their own unique flag and coat of arms. However, keep in mind, 6 of these cantons are considered traditional half cantons, which means they are grouped into 3 pairs that share a councillor in their government. In order to maintain a somewhat decentralized government system that keeps cantons happy, technically Switzerland has no official capital, as stated by their constitution, but Bern is considered the de facto capital, as it holds the House of Parliament and other federal authorities. The country's largest city, though, would be Zurich, located in the northeastern part of the country. It also hosts the largest and busiest airport, Zurich International. And from there, the next largest cities are Geneva and Basel, which also carry respectively the second and third busiest airports as well. In fact, about 75% of the population actually lives in the North Swiss plateau, even though it only makes up about 30% of the land's surface. Speaking of which, the only ambiguous
I mean, it
dispute
kinda
they
makes
have
sense.
is with Germany and Austria over the Bodensee, or Lake Constance. The three countries have never formally established borders, and they kind of just don't say anything. In any case,
Yeah,
Switzerland also
I
has
heard
some
about
other
this.
unique
I've
border-
heard about this before. I don't remember in which video, but why is that? Well, I guess there's no need to. Is the lake not important? There's no issues at all with that lake. That is, I mean, it's interesting. I guess, if all nations are friendly, then
anomalies.
there's
For
no
one,
issue at
by
all.
Schaffhausen, Switzerland tried to grab as much land as they could north of the Rhine River, leaving a unique layout of territory grabs that jut into Germany, and it even leaves one exclave of Germany entirely within Switzerland, Busingen am
Wow.
Hochrhein. Head down south to the Ticino canton, and you have the Campione d'Italia, which is basically one big casino resort. It is an exclave of Italy completely engulfed within Switzerland, only about a half mile or less than 1 kilometer over a hill away from Italy. Finally, if you go up to Basel, you have some very weird skinny land salients that jut into France for no logical reason, like this one by the town of Rieti, which at its narrowest choke point is less than 230 feet or 70
Wow.
meters wide. Transport in Switzerland is top-notch though.
It's just
Well-paved
weird.
highways, tunnels, and train networks connect every region of Switzerland. The biggest and most proud engineering project that the country has ever gone through though would probably be the Gotthard Base Tunnel. It is the longest rail tunnel and deepest traffic tunnel in the world, effectively cutting through the Alps, connecting
Wow.
the canton of Uri with Ticino. This tunnel has heavily bolstered the efficiency of Switzerland's freight and passenger transport, as about 11,000 people and about 70,000 tons of cargo are able to swiftly pass by daily.
Fun fact, because of Herman, me and my mom actually got to go see Liechtenstein. He drove us all the way from Zurich, all the way through Liechtenstein in Austria, and we ended up in Lindau, Germany, where we met the worst waiter ever at a casino restaurant.
I remember this guy was horrible. In Switzerland, public
Why?
transport is really good. You can get almost anywhere by train. That's the Jungfrau-Joch-Bahn, which brings you above 3,500 meters.
But that's kind of like more of a touristy thing, right?
Is that like public transportation? Like it literally takes you to the mountains? If that's the case, then yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a tour. I've never been there.
Speaking of trains, you said something about like they donate the old ones, right?
Yeah, actually trams. The trams of Zurich are going to Ukraine, and the trams from Basel are going to Belgrade.
The interesting thing is that historically, some places that are actually outside of modern-day Switzerland used to be protectorates or associates of Switzerland.
They are Mulhouse, which lies in today's France, Rottweil in Germany, Valtellina and Bormio, which today lie in Italy. Even though the Austrian state of Vorarlberg once voted to become part of Switzerland in World War I, we decided to better not take them in.
You rejected them. Now, another thing about Switzerland you have to understand is that they kind of have like two imaginary
Neutrality.
lines
It's
based
all
off of
about
the cultural
neutrality.
regions. You can explain. What are they, Herman?
There's
The language?
Graben separating the French-speaking part of Switzerland from the German, and then there's the Polenta Graben, which is between the German part
Italian,
and the
yeah.
south, which speaks Italian.
Basically, one side drinks beer, the other wine. Due to their history of constantly being
Oh,
invaded or outside forces threatening or just generally bothering them, the Swiss have developed a culture of, let's just kind of call it heavy defensive caution.
We are neutral, but we still
Hardcore
are prepared to defend
neutrality.
ourselves to make it as expensive as
Yeah, I think they literally have like dynamite on tunnels, and if something were to happen, they can just blow up tunnels and roads, and it's pretty crazy when you think about it.
possible for anybody.
They
to
take it
attack us.
very
This is
fucking
why,
seriously.
should the event ever occur, the country is loaded with copious amounts of bunkers everywhere. Like, it's actually a law, all living units have to have a bunker or something like that, right? Yeah.
We have a lot of hidden bunkers, and if you go hiking, you will just see them, but they're nowhere on the map.
There's no exact number on how many are built, but apparently they
shit.
can protect the entire population plus more, right? I think.
100%.
The question is for how long, right?
In any case, Switzerland has so many notable cool sites to see and visit. We actually
mean,
filmed
good
this
for them,
part
man.
before
Can
I
you
could
blame
audition
them?
Anybody to do it, so I'll just fill this in with a dubbed voiceover. Here's
Alex. Hey guys, I'm Alex. I'm from Geneva.
I mean, when your neighbors are France, Germany, Austria, and Italy, you might as well take some precautions.
Switzerland, although I'm currently in Mexico. Here's a few things you should
Hey,
absolutely check out if you
good
haven't
for
made it to
you,
Switzerland.
man.
Check out the Jet d'Eau Fountain, the Cathedral Saint-Pierre, Palais des Nations, which is home of the United Nations, and the Sun Hydroglidon. Castles, check out the Chateau de Chillon, the Oberhofen, Valais,
This
and
guy
Tourbillon.
speaks good
Chateau
English.
de Gruyère, Bunhausen, which is basically a capital. check out the Bear Park, Kinderfressenbrunnen statue, Lauterbrunnen that has over 70 waterfalls. The Lake Lucerne has the Lion Monument and the Chapel Bridge with 347 ski resorts covering a distance of 4,500 miles. Zermatt, Saas-Fee, Samaritz, and my personal favorite, Verbier. For more Mediterranean feels, check out the Old Town piazzas and beautiful lakeside views of Lugano down in the south of Switzerland. Switzerland also has a bunch of museums and amusement parks, so for that, check out Aqua Park, Coneyland, Swiss Vapor Park, and the Geiger Museum, which is absolutely amazing. And if you're looking for an adrenaline rush, check out the mountain coasters, also toboggan, as well as
Something that I'm really curious about. If you are a French-speaking Swiss, but you go to the German-speaking part, how do you communicate? Do you use English? Do you speak a little bit of German, or even in the Italian parts? Or like, for example, the signs have like double language, French and German. I'm really interested, and I hope they touch on this because I just want to know.
the Stoespan funicular, which is the steepest funicular.
So like in
the world.
Canada,
But
where you can
yeah,
find a
thank
lot
you
of
so much.
English
Have
and
a great day.
French.
Thank
Oh,
you.
shit.
Alex.
You're always going underground for whatever reason,
Yeah, if you have a mountain in between two places, what are you gonna do?
which is actually the perfect transition into the next segment. The...
Now, of course, you cannot talk about Switzerland without talking about the mountains and nature.
Literally, the moment you say Switzerland, obviously images of like snow-capped mountains and valleys.
Oh, it's
and
beautiful.
cows with
It's
cow
honestly
milk.
one of the
Even
most beautiful
iconic
countries out there.
Matterhorn probably comes up, although 12 people a year usually die on it. But yeah, it's still very beautiful.
It's a challenge. So let's go to the map and break down Switzerland's land makeup.
Now, despite Switzerland being famous for the Alps and being the most mountainous country in Europe, the actual Alps only make up about 60% of the country. The remainder of the country is
Well,
made up of
only
two other geographic
60%.
zones, the Swiss or Central Plateau, which is the lowest part of the country and where most of the agriculture and livestock raising is concentrated, and the Jura Mountains in the northwest on the border with France. Of course, in the Alps you can find, shocker, the tallest peak, Dufourspitze, just on the border with Italy. No, the famous incredibly difficult to climb Matterhorn just a few miles away is not the tallest peak. It just looks really cool. That's all. Just a skip away, you find the Aletsch Glacier.
I had
the
no
largest
idea
glacier
about this
in the
mountain.
Alps, and it is a UNESCO heritage site. From the ice melt of the Alps, of course, you get the source of all the rivers that feed Switzerland, including the longest river, the Rhine, which shares borders with its neighbors. However, the longest river fully in Switzerland, not shared, would be the Aare or Aar River. Of course, these rivers also feed into the world-renowned lakes of Switzerland, the largest one being Lake Geneva or Lac Léman, in which Switzerland was like very set on making sure they hooked around the end with Geneva and got most of it when splitting it with France. Nonetheless, the largest lake fully in Switzerland is Neuchâtel, not to be confused with Neuchâtel in Normandy, France, which is where the soft cheese comes from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and those highlights don't even cover
That's
a
good to
fraction
know.
of all the cool nature stuff in Switzerland.
You can hike, then at the end you arrive at the lake, and it's perfect.
Is it like fresh enough for you to drink from, or no?
You could maybe, but the guy might have peed in it 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Well, Switzerland sure is beautiful, but when it comes to natural resources, we're actually not so rich. We don't really have any. Much of our economy is actually based on industry and services.
To explain a little bit more
Financial
about the economy and industrial
services.
output, here's Noah to explain.
All right, let's get to it. We all know high-end things like luxury Swiss watches and Swiss knives are made in Switzerland,
All
which
right.
are, by the way, a multi-billion-dollar industry. By the way, if you're
Holy
looking for a
shit.
backpack, Swiss gear is amazing. I've had one of those backpacks for probably over a decade. Great stuff.
Good backpacks, man.
But the one industry that everyone takes focus on, even though it only makes up about 15% of their economy, is the Swiss banking system. Home to two world-renowned companies, UBS and Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse being founded by Alfred Escher. Look him up. The appeal is that Swiss banks offer an insane amount of privacy and confidentiality. To explain more about the bank situation, here's Swiss geography Simon.
Grüezi miteinander. Hello, I am Simon and I'm actually from Switzerland.
What part of Switzerland?
Bodensee.
Whoa!
See, back in 1713, Switzerland's Great Council decided they would outlaw the financial disclosure to Europe's financial elites. In addition, all forms of bribery were pretty much criminalized. Since 1934, it was
Good.
made criminal to disclose the identity of any account holders, as long as they didn't have any extreme felony charges. Even though the interest rates are really low, sometimes the rate is even negative, which means you have to pay to hold Swiss francs or to open an account. Nonetheless, our rate of investments are pretty high, like at 2.5%, due to the regular stability of the Swiss economy. Granted, there was some controversy, as there have been many lawsuits brought against our beautiful banks, such as the 1996 Holocaust victim class action lawsuit, which claimed that Swiss banks knowingly concealed assets illegally acquired by the Nazis. Then again, in 2009, the US
That's controversial
Switzerland
stuff.
into, disclosing wealthy assets from 50,000 Americans. It worked, but now, Swiss banks don't accept any Americans or even Swiss people who move to America or who make a vacation in Florida. If you
Really?
want to open an account, just contact me on Instagram and it will be totally confidential. Thank you very much. Adieu miteinander. Au revoir.
Thanks, Simon. Yeah, with great banks comes great life.
Is that true? Like, if you're an American, you can't. I'm confused, man. Good thing I'm not American.
Abilities. But of course,
I have
Switzerland
my
is
Mexican
more than
passport
just
still.
Banks. They have thriving pharmaceutical, tech, and tourism sectors. The palate is getting dry.
Is that a Swiss bottle too?
That'd be pretty cool if it was. They take their agriculture industry very seriously. The government actually subsidizes 70% of farms. I mean, how can you say no to the wonderful dairy provided by Swiss cows? To explain more about the animal situation, here is Gary Harlow.
Hey guys, Caleb's actually busy. He couldn't do this segment, but we got Ian. So you're gonna be Gary Harlow today. You're probably gonna mess it up, but I don't care. Yay.
I'm a screw up for sure. Switzerland, being the alpine nation it is, provides quite a habitat for all kinds of strange species. The country has
Whoa. The guy is supposed to do an Australian accent, but he's doing a weird version of an American Southern accent.
18 official nature parks. Now, in these mountains, you have quite a many of mountain-adapted ungulates. Much noted are the ibex and the chamois.
Bro,
Thanks to
just
their
sit down,
two-toed
bro.
hooves, these little guys latch on to the narrowest of walls. And this makes you think, are they brave or are they just stupid? I ask myself that a lot. Unfortunately, most of the predators, like the gray wolf and the Eurasian lynx, are incredibly rare. Brown bears were actually hunted to extinction in 1904. Now, one species of predator that does thrive in Switzerland is the European asp. It's a viper, and it's well adapted to the high altitudes. Now, the bite's extremely painful. Now, unlike most countries, Switzerland doesn't have a national animal. But if you ask around, you might find out that the unofficial Swiss animal is the iconic Swiss cow. Even though they're not naturally from these here mountains. All right, well, that's it for me, fellas.
This is terrible.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Hannah, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Thanks, Ian.
Just take him
Anyway,
out.
we've discussed much of the industry, economy, and physical makeup. That means there's only one more part left. Food! Now, I love doing this part, but I will gracefully step down and let an actual Swiss geography take over.
Hello, we are Mara and Terence, and today we are going to talk about Swiss food.
We have to talk about cheese, of course.
course.
Thousands of varieties of them.
Probably also know the popular dishes, fondue and raclette.
Oh,
Rösti, which is like a hash
oh
brown,
my God, I'm so
Apfelkrone,
hungry, dude.
Schnetzlets, Bernardplatte,
Oh.
Bave Vaudois,
Oh, dude,
Holocaust,
so
the
good.
Lindsel.
So fucking good.
Seriously.
And desserts, Posle Leckerli, Bündner Nusstorte.
Like, imagine combining the best of French and German food. That's how good this looks. God damn.
Käsetorte.
Ooh.
Carousel.
And of
Ooh.
course, chocolate.
Yeah, although we don't have cocoa trees here,
We also invented absinthe.
which is a super strong alcohol, can give you hallucinations. Then there is also another soft drink called Rivella.
I want to
And,
drink that.
Finally, in every Swiss kitchen, mochi and automat. And like a mini automat dösli in a Swiss person's hiking backpack.
That's it.
And I gotta try some of those desserts you mentioned. All right,
Yeah.
Barbs, back to you.
Thank you, Noah.
Also, fun fact, because Switzerland is so expensive, we actually like to go shopping in other countries, just because it's cheaper. There are some laws what you
Really?
can bring back, like 1 kilogram of meat, 5 liters of wine, or 1 liter of strong liquor, and 1 kilogram of butter.
They actually check at the border when you drive through.
Yes,
But I mean, you guys do have good stuff. I mean, you're well known for your cheese and chocolate.
we put it on everything. You bake something in the oven, put some cheese on it. You're having sushi, why not put some raclette? Yeah, food.
Oh,
always
all right.
makes
Okay,
people
that's a
together.
little bit too
For
much
that one time
cheese.
in Lindau with that waiter, I swear.
Seriously,
Oh my
dude,
God,
4
what-
years
what
later and you're
happened,
still
man?
traumatized.
Yes, I'm still pissed off. Anyway, let's move on. Switzerland, as we already explained, has a lot of cantons. And there's actually kind of a word you guys have in Switzerland. Explain, Herman.
It's Eidgenossenschaft.
What does it mean?
An oath alliance came along and formed a nation, except for Ticino, which we conquered.
Despite the fact that each of the region kind of has their own canton
All right.
cultural difference, at the end of the day, they are all Swiss. Here's how you break down the populace.
First of all, the country has about 8.5 million people and often ranks in the top 3 global competitive markets and human development index scores on Earth.
That's
Ethnically
nice,
speaking, things get a little complicated because Swiss censuses only take in data from factors like citizenship and place of birth. So the specific details can be a little vague, but in the broadest sense, it will say that about 75% of the country are Swiss nationals and the remaining 25% are resident foreigners. One of the highest proportions in the
that's a
developed
lot.
world.
1 out
Here
of 4.
Things get a little overlappy because within both groups, everything breaks down linguistically as well. Often, Switzerland will refer to their linguistic groups for data rather than ethnic.
Because
in which
it's
case,
easier.
about 63% of the country are primarily German-speaking Swiss, 23% are primarily French-speaking, and somewhere around 8 to 9% are primarily Italian-speaking. Finally, less than 1% are Romansh-speaking. Keep in mind, this data can apply to anyone from anywhere that claims these languages as primaries, regardless of their ethnic background.
Like you can
What
be
we
a
do
French
know, though,
citizen.
is that of the 25% foreign residents, about 64% of them are from the EU or EFTA countries, the largest being Italians, followed by Germans and Portuguese and French. There's a sizable Kosovar Albanian community, and of the Asian community, Sri Lankans, mostly of Tamil descent, make up the largest demographic.
The Swiss franc is our currency and we drive on the right side of the road.
And you guys use the J plug outlet, which I hate because there's like an inward diamond-shaped divot and my C plug adapters don't fit. Why do you guys are trying to do everything to be different from the rest of Europe? It's so weird.
Well, sometimes you introduce a standard before the rest of Europe and then it's too late. In Switzerland, the dishwashers used to be 55 centimeters and then Europe introduced a new standard of 60 centimeters. But the problem is it costs more to manufacture in a special size, so our dishwashers cost 3 times as much. Yay!
Anyway, Switzerland has 4 official languages: Swiss German, Swiss French, Swiss Italian, and Romansh. Even though less than 1% of the country speaks it, it's still an official language.
Yeah, what's up with that?
It's actually pretty closely related to Vulgar Latin, which was spoken in the Roman Empire, and it's also a cousin of Romanian.
So most of us know 3 languages somehow.
What is the difference between Swiss German and Hochdeutsch spoken in Germany?
So Swiss German is a very strong dialect. We have dropped, for example, the simple past tense, and the Germans don't really understand us.
Don't even get started with French Swiss as well, although I do like how they use the 90 and 80 and 70, 80 and 90. Like,
99.
Oh yeah, it's a fucking pain in the ass learning how to pronounce the fucking numbers if you're learning French. It's horrible, dude.
Ticino Italian. In fact, you know what? Matteo can explain it.
Here you go. This guy can explain.
So Ticino Swiss sounds very much like
Holy crap, who is this guy?
You can't tell if it's a Swiss or not just by the pronunciation, but the Swiss have some specific word that,
You know, a very Italian guy.
that give them up. For example, they say Natel instead of mobile phone, or they say lift instead of ascensore for saying lift. Except for this, it's just usual Northern Italian speak.
Anyway, regardless of the linguistic background, they are not French Swiss or German Swiss or Italians. They're all just
Swiss.
For what it's worth, though, there's so much
Amen.
backstory with Switzerland.
For example, the Habsburg family, which ruled the Austrian-Hungarian Empire for centuries, was from Habsburg in Aargau, Switzerland. But they lost with their knights against the Swiss peasants in the Battle of Morgarten.
See, this is kind of the interesting contrast to the otherwise neutral, peaceful image of Switzerland comes in. The brutal fighting skill of the Swiss was so well renowned throughout Europe that it actually kind of became like
They
their
protect the
biggest
Pope.
export.
All the rulers in Europe got Swiss mercenaries, and in the end it might be a French king fighting an Italian army, and in the end it's Swiss fighting Swiss.
That's so weird.
And then they actually decided to stop having offensive war and introduce this neutrality.
Nonetheless, you know, their neutrality has always been kind of pressured throughout the years, and it's been kind of pushed. Explain a little bit more, Herman.
In neutrality, you also have to treat both sides of the war similar. For example, you could not trade with any of them, but we didn't do that because we didn't want to get invaded by Germany. So we traded with Germany, we traded some with the Allies in the historic context of being surrounded.
Which, by the way, allegedly, Germany actually considered invading Switzerland, and they didn't because it's just easier going around the Netherlands and Belgium instead of going through the Alps. But they did consider it.
Surrounded by the Axis powers, well, you had to stay neutral. You had to do what you had to do.
How do you deal with all this pressure trying to be neutral when the whole world is not neutral and you're surrounded by everybody? It's a tough question. But for what it's worth, Switzerland has known that neutrality has always kind of come at a cost. And this is one of the reasons why Switzerland is a conscription country.
You go to military after you're 19, once for half a year, and then every year a couple of weeks, 3 or 4.
Oh,
until
really?
you're 30 or 31. There's a disclaimer though, there are some exceptions. The Swiss military has some quotas of how many people they want. If you have some health issues, you don't have to go to the military, but you will be paying 3% of your salary to the army. And if you have ethical reasons not to go, You can also fill out a form, apply to not go to the military, but you will have to take 1.5 times as much time in something called civil service, maybe, where you do some projects for the
This
good
fucking
of
sucks,
the country.
dude.
So at the end of the day, somehow you have to serve Switzerland.
Yeah, and after the military service, you usually take the gun home.
Technically, Switzerland has one of the highest gun ownership populations in the world. This all kind of plays into their unique system of government. It's often said that Switzerland is in an eternal election campaign.
So we vote 3 to 4 times a year, and we also vote
Wow.
regional for people to get into the national council.
So it's kind of like Switzerland focuses more on policies rather than politicians, would you say? A little bit of both?
A little bit of both.
But it's like you're very involved in everything.
Yes, we are involved, and if we don't like something, there will be a referendum.
But in Switzerland, it's relatively easy.
Yeah, some cantons have different voting systems, like voting publicly by raising hand or some weird family.
Really?
The head of state of Switzerland actually
You
though,
just go like this?
is the
All right.
Federal Council.
And one of them is the president, but it doesn't really matter because it changes every year, and he's just one among equals.
Fun fact, Switzerland can actually deny citizenship to anybody who wants to apply for it. In fact, in 2010, there was one lady who was denied because her neighbors said she was annoying.
There's a lot of those stories, like somebody not knowing where the baker is in the village because she showed up
What?
in a big store. No passport for you.
In regards to religion, like most countries
Wow,
in Europe,
that's-
most of the people will at least culturally identify
That's
with
kinda weird.
Christianity, and in Switzerland, the case is mostly with Catholicism or Protestantism.
It used to be very important. My grandma told me her parents would not have accepted her bringing home a Catholic, but nowadays we don't really care anymore.
Now, of course, this is one source that played a role in many of the regional differences throughout Switzerland, and they also kind of have like a healthy level of regional competition. And with that, let's move on to the sports part with art.
So, sports in Switzerland go hand in hand, even on the corporate side. In fact, because the tax laws, many European and
I could
international
really
sports
skip this. I don't
federations
care
hold their
about.
headquarters in Switzerland. Domestically, though, Switzerland has some sports that they actually invented, such as Schwengen, which is played in sawdust, and the contenders wear burlap shorts. There's also Hornissen. It's a team sport. It's kind of like a mix between golf and baseball. In any case, when you live in a country with big snowy mountains, you're going to get an emphasis on this is I know, a
Alright,
total
I mean,
shocker,
they
on
look
winter
cool.
sports. Skiing and mountaineering are pretty much taught from adolescence. Switzerland also invented competitive sledding. They invented the first bobsled.
Gosh, I
and
want to move to
bobsled
Switzerland,
track
dude, if
in
I'm
St.
honest.
Moritz. Switzerland has done pretty well considering their size in both the Summer and Winter Olympics. Alpine skiing being their strongest event with 22 gold medals. On another note, auto racing was actually banned in Switzerland. They had a huge
Why?
crash in 1955 that stopped it all. But the government made a little loophole exception for electric racing. And finally, we cannot
Okay.
end this segment without
Climate change
mentioning
is
the most
over,
popular
boys.
athlete. I know him, Roger Federer. He's part of the big three. 20 Grand Slam singles title winner, 103 ATP singles titles, 2-time Olympic medalist. He has streets named after him, coins with his face. He's a model for Rolex and numerous brands. There's a lot of babies out there named after him for sure. I once won
Wow.
a trophy for potato sack
He's a
racing,
big deal.
and it was a big deal. Like my mom was proud of me. And I do not know how to end my segment, so
Thank you.
All right,
Yeah,
that
the
wasn't
Swiss
that
people have
bad.
shown that even though they're a small country, they still can pack a punch with a competitive side.
And we have this thing called Kantönligeist, where each canton really has their own rules and does their own thing.
To explain a little bit more about the culture and how things kind of go out in that way for Switzerland, here's Random Hannah with culture stuff.
Hi guys, I'm back. And remember, you can get a Random Hannah shirt at geographynow.com. The culture of Switzerland cannot be easily summarized as a nation. That's because it breaks down to each canton having its distinct identity. There are lots of stereotypes for them, but here are some that you guys told us. Aargau is known for having bad drivers. Valais has the most incomprehensible accent, while Graubünden has
I feel this is something that really happens in every single country. There's always a region where it's like, oh, the people from this part are really bad drivers, or they have like a really bad accent.
beautiful one. Glarus doesn't exist. Zurich has a superiority.
Yeah, exactly. We also have, at least in Mexico and maybe in the US too, I don't know, but we also have a region that we joke about as it doesn't exist because it's so small and has very few people. So it's just a big joke on how they don't exist. So I get it. I get it, Switzerland.
Complex, and Geneva is just the French version of Zurich. Appenzell is known for hippies and alternative medicine. Funny enough, Inner Appenzell didn't give women the right to vote until 1991, and the country as a whole till 1970.
Wow,
In fact,
holy
Switzerland
shit.
is known for having many interesting laws. For example, if you live in an apartment, you are not allowed to make distracting noises after 10 p.m. You're not allowed
What?
to cut your grass in an apartment. You are not allowed.
You can't do laundry, shower, have parties, but the worst, toilet flushing. Like, is this? I know it's real, but is this enforced? You can go to jail for flushing the toilet? Are you shitting me?
Allowed to make distracting noises after 10 p.m. You're not allowed to
That
cut
sucks,
your grass,
dude.
hang your laundry, or do noisy chores on Sunday. The Swiss really seem to value their silence. The Swiss are known for their many discoveries and inventions as well,
Holy
such
crap,
as
man.
cellophane and aluminum foil, Velcro, the vegetable peeler, the discovery of nucleic acid and DNA, and they were co-creators of the World Wide Web. Notable contemporary icons of Swiss culture include figures like Globy, Papa Mole, Shellen Orsley, and the most famous one worldwide, Heidi. They are notable for the visual arts in every field. You can find it in everything like Basel, with its 13th century Romanesque architecture, to the early 20th century Dada movement. Even Helvetica font and its variants originated in Switzerland.
It's one of the preferred fonts that we use on Geography Now.
Speaking of the arts, one
The
way to learn
Helvetica,
about
all right,
Switzerland
well,
is through
true.
its films. And if you want to learn more about Switzerland's films, follow my channel, Filmography Now.
Hannah has a spin-off.
In any case, each canton in Switzerland has its own festivals and
Is
celebrations.
she the girlfriend of Paul? I mean, you know, she's doing good. She got her own channel. I can't blame
You
her.
have everything from the Basler Fastnacht, where people in Basel dress up in masks and throw confetti, to Spunenfest, held every 12 years in the town of Interlaken, where men compete to throw massive boulders. There's too many festivals, we can't go through them all. Partially because we have to move on, which means you know what's coming next. The Florida man himself, Keith. We need another hurricane.
What's up, everybody?
I mean, at
Keith
least
here. So
Keith,
today
it's
I
kind of
decided
funny,
to wear my
girl.
bathrobe
So
because,
chill.
You know, you gotta live life comfortable. By the way, guys, you can buy a Keith shirt. Look at that design. I designed it myself. Okay, so you guys think you know Swiss
I said
music
kind
and all
of,
that stuff. You
not
probably
always.
think of, you know, yodeling, cowbells. That's a good start, but let's go a little further. Many experts
Yodeling.
will agree that European alpine yodeling had its roots in Switzerland dating back to
I mean, I can also blame. I can't blame Paul for inviting his friends to the channel. It's kind of like a noble thing to do. So I'm not gonna
early 1500s.
criticize these
The
people.
technique was used by herdsmen trying to call their livestock or communicating far distances between villages in the mountains. Many will say that the traditional national dance music of Switzerland, though, is Lander. It uses a 3/4 time signature. Quarter note gets every single beat, whatever. This style was actually adopted by many classical composers like Beethoven,
Okay.
Schubert. They kind of just, you know, took it and ran with it. Okay, now let's fast forward a couple hundred years. They actually hosted and won the very first Eurovision Song Contest. Fun fact, 30 years later, they would actually win again, but with Celine Dion, even though she's Canadian. And for some reason,
Yeah.
Tina Turner is a citizen. It has nothing to do with banks and money. Anyway, there are tons of music festivals like Street Parade festivals, the Montreux Jazz Festival, which has had such artists as Pat Metheny, Steve Morse Band. I hope to go
I
there.
don't know
at
any
some
of these
point,
people.
goal of mine. There's even a statue of Freddie Mercury, as Queen recorded many of their top hits in a studio over there. All right, we don't have time to talk about the entire evolution of the 20th century and the 21st century of Swiss musicians and stuff like that. But however, what I will say is that if you like heavy metals bands, you should check out Celtic Frost, which is a great metal band. I hope you enjoyed my segment today. Stay Keith, everybody.
Thank you, Keith.
So something important
Stay
about
Keith.
Switzerland is how they interact with the rest of the world.
Which brings us to the last segment, the
friend zone.
Oh!
Yeah, you know, usually I would always try to comment something about the country's relationship and my own, which is Mexico. But I don't think I have anything to comment. There's nothing relevant to say between Mexico and Switzerland, other than I guess they're sort of friendly nations with each other.
We have managed to actually dodge a bullet and stay neutral throughout the last century, which was a quite
Yeah,
difficult thing to
yeah.
achieve.
I mean,
Both
they're so
world wars,
neutral
that's
that
definitely
even
an
North Korea
accomplishment.
joined the UN before them. Although you guys did host the European.
We'll host anything with
You
diplomacy, but
hosted.
we'll also pay for it, but we don't join. Here's how they played out their diplomacy game.
In respect to their constitution and overall global reputation, Switzerland's foreign policy is to traditionally avoid alliances and work for humanitarian efforts that strive for world peace and prosperity. This is partially why they host more international organizations than any other country in the world, most heavily concentrated in Geneva. Nonetheless, with their intense history and background, there are some countries that Switzerland has to admit they have quite a closer link to, if at the very least culturally. No one likes to make fun of Germans more than the Swiss, but in reality these two are so heavily tied in, especially with the Baden-Württemberg state that borders Switzerland. The area around the town of Rottweil was part of the old Swiss Confederacy that was lost during Napoleonic Wars, and today the town has an agreement of friendship with Switzerland. Overall, South
cool.
Swabian Germans and German-speaking Swiss generally understand and get each other way better than, say, a Berliner German. In that regard, Austria has traditionally been one of their biggest rivals in things like sports and outclassing each other with things like classical music, architecture, and general welfare. They both admire each other's systems of operation, and many Swiss will say that Austrians probably get them way better than the Germans. Otherwise, France pretty much has the oldest diplomatic exchange when they signed the Treaty of Perpetual Peace in 1516, and the first Swiss ambassador abroad was hosted in Paris in 1798. Today, France hosts more Swiss people in diaspora than any other country in the world at nearly 250,000, and they appreciate each other's, shall we say, bougie standards. On the other hand, Italians, mostly Lombards, have been rapidly moving into Switzerland, mostly in the Ticino canton, and are really taking advantage of that Italian-speaking official status. The Vatican City to this day still hires Swiss guards to stand at the palace, a tradition that has been going on since 1506, one of the oldest military units continuously in operation in the world. They still dress in traditional Renaissance uniforms and are actually trained in combat and small arms. It's not just for show. When it comes to their best friends, though, most Swiss will tell you, oh, we're neutral, we can't say we have
We
a
don't
best
have a
friend.
best
But after
friend.
you get them a little tipsy and ask them one more time, they might make a Freudian slip and say, Little Liechtenstein. Switzerland and
Really?
Little Liechtenstein go hand in hand. They are irrefutably inseparable. Liechtenstein is basically Switzerland's adorable little baby sibling about 200 years younger. They not only share currencies and speak almost the exact same German dialect, they have a customs union, open borders, and the same stance on armed neutrality, but Switzerland also agrees to protect them if anything happens, represent them in any international treaty negotiations or abroad if they are unable to, and even when
Holy
Switzerland
shit.
makes mistakes and does things like accidentally firing an artillery shell at a ski resort in 1968, or accidentally invades them because the soldiers couldn't read maps, Liechtenstein is just happy to see them and offers them drinks upon arrival.
Is that for real?
All right, and in conclusion, Herman, take it away. You're the Swiss guy. I'm out.
Switzerland is a beautiful country where it's really nice to live and enjoy a nice and peaceful life, or have a nice vacation if you bring the necessary cash.
Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Herman, for being in this video. It was so fun filming with you. I can't believe I flew out here to just see you. Stay tuned. Syria is coming up next.
Oh, that's gonna be a doozy. Yo, well, I actually really enjoyed that. It was so fun, especially because you generally, or at least here in this part of the world, you generally just don't hear a lot about Switzerland, but they definitely have such an interesting history, first of all. The people seem to be really nice, a really nice blend of French, German with a little bit of Italian sprinkled on. And it's just such an interesting national culture. The whole neutrality thing is fascinating for me. And again, the whole that a large multicultural nation can function as one. It's really cool. I really want to go to Switzerland. It's amazing. I love chocolate. I fucking love cheese. I love alcohol. And the Swiss seem to be really good in all of those. Plus, I like watches and good style. You know, this is my clothing for the gym, but I generally like to dress a little bit nicer. But anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. You can also activate the little bell thing. If you want to support me, you could check the links in the description because YouTube just loves to demonetize my channel. So I would really, really appreciate that. And of course, if you share the video and all that good stuff. And we've already been almost 40 minutes. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.